All right, everyone, the illegal immigrant crisis is coming to Maine, specifically to Brunswick, where they've decided to finance building 5 new structures to house illegal aliens and asylum seekers. The terms, for some reason, when people use the term migrant, they need to understand that they're talking about a small minority of the people coming into the United States, because asylum eligibility is not something that is like, hey, you walked across the border, here's paperwork showing you're allowed to stay here because you're from a commie regime or something like that. I don't have any problem with taking in people that are fleeing leftism, as long as they don't take the leftism with them, by the way. But most of these people are simply illegals. I know Nikki Haley has a problem with using that term, like her fellow Democrats, but really the proper term is illegal immigrant, because you've immigrated to the country. You've done so illegally. It's fairly straightforward. It's fairly simple to understand. Brunswick is also going to pay 2 years of rent for these individuals. Yeah, and give them a stipend and all sorts of other cool shit. If only the homeless in the United States, veterans, people who are strung out, people who they got fucked around in life, their parents basically kicked them out when they were 18, they ended up hooking for a living. It'd be nice if they could get the kind of resources that are being doled out like candy by the states and by the federal government to people who have broken the law even by physically residing in the country in the first place. People who, of no fault of their own in many cases, they fell through the cracks in the system. There are millions of them, and there's very little help available for them. They get a few nights in the homeless shelter. Okay, you can get a shit and shave and shower and a hamburger, but you've exhausted your free night stay in 3 days. So then you have to go back out into the cold wasteland that is known as Vermont or something like that. Maine has got cold climate. You've got thousands of homeless people in Maine. They're still homeless, but these people won't be. They're getting taxpayer money to pay their rent. It's free. You can stay here. Yeah, we're going to give you... And by the way, they'll extend that later on. I hope that the taxpayers in Maine understand this. It's not going to be a temporary thing. It's going to be permanent. These people are going to stay illegal. You think the federal government has any desire to legalize these people? You're going to hear a big game over the coming years by the Democrats saying we need a path forward to citizenship or at least permanent residency for some of these people. Certain classes of people. They came when they were really young. They've worked dutifully and they didn't break any laws or anything like that. It's fine. That's perfectly wonderful. I support letting some of those people stay in the country too. I'm not actually a hardliner on this issue. I draw flack from some of my own audience on the issue. Some of them don't want any immigration even legally at all. I have no problem with somebody who has retroactively filled the paperwork, paid the back taxes and the fees and shit like that and kept their nose clean. I would let them stay. Call me a bleeding heart liberal if you want, that's perfectly fine. But that's a minority of the people in this group. It's not most of them. There are tens of millions of people illegally in the country. There are tens of thousands of them in Maine alone. And now they're exhausting taxpayer funds that the state doesn't even have in order to pay their rent. While there are people who were born and have lived in Maine all their life who are stranded out on the streets with no assistance. What they should do, I suppose, is lose their legal paperwork, rename themselves Pablo, fly down to Mexico. This is an idea. Why don't we take all the homeless people in the country that are actually due the support of the country, and we'll start a fund, and we'll get them down to Mexico, and then they'll just walk across the border without any paperwork and start living under a new identity. Oh, on paper, I'm Mexican. Yeah, I know. I speak fluent English, and I don't sound, Mexican at all. But just fucking trust me, you dumb fuck. They gave me the wrong books on tape in school when I was a kid. I bet that you could get away with it too. And then those people can be in that a wonderful class of people within the country that's illegally there, but still getting taxpayer-funded assistance. I just don't understand it. When you've got millions of homeless people already in your country, people who are down and out, people who maybe they're not homeless, but they're desperately impoverished. Again, kids born in the United States are getting less support than kids that were born in Honduras and whose mother carried them across the border. I am sensitive towards their situation. I understand poverty. I've been in it myself a number of times, thankfully avoiding it lately. I know what it's like to be poor. Certainly know what it's like to be persecuted by the government. Pretty much every good content creator has been. Although I have never lived under a socialist regime, and thank God for that. I understand that, but that's not the bulk of people that are coming into the country illegally. What's going to end up happening is you're going to end up, by the way, with effectively the ghettoization of this particular location. You will see crime because all you need is one cartel member to have come in among the other group. They will do what cartel members do and exploit others. You'll probably see prostitution. You'll probably see drug use. It'll be sort of like a mini mafia town or something like that. We've seen this before. It almost inevitably happens. It happens regardless of the group that's coming in. I mean, organized crime will come in with it. Terrorism, potentially, too. So, you can spout all the statistics at me that you want of, well, people who are legally in the country commit less crimes than natural-born citizens. Okay, so why do I care? They're illegally in the country. They should have come in legally. That's the other problem. The other thing, which I deviate from much of my audience, I know some of you on, is I think that the legal immigration system should be streamlined. You realize how onerous it is and how many hoops you have to jump through and how much it costs to do so? It pretty much disincentivizes the exact kind of labor that the Republicans especially keep ranting about us needing. Well, who's going to pick the vegetables and shit like that? You're disincentivizing that, so you have to bring them in illegally, in an undocumented sense. They can't keep up with the border crossings. We have a border crisis, and now the state of Maine is saying, hey, taxpayers, unilaterally we're commanding you to pay money for people that are not even legally within the country itself, physically speaking. Now, it's okay if you have like a group of immigrant kids there, and so you set up some sort of shelter for them that's very kind, it's very nice. It should be up to the voters, number one. Within a given area, a state or whatever. It should be up to the voters, and by and large it hasn't been left up to them if they were the ones making the decision. Very quickly they would sour on the premise. Here's the other thing when this happens. What you're going to see is a lowered amount of tolerance towards immigrant groups, whether legal or illegal by the way, by people in this region within Maine. You are necessarily going to see that. People in NIMBYist communities love to lavish praise on those people and invite them cordially and take them to the church dinner until they realize that it's going to cause economic stress for them. And then they will turn their backs on these people and ice them out and cause an insular community to form. A ghettoization. It is inevitable. We've seen this in Chicago. We've seen this in New York. Damn right you're going to see it in Brunswick, Maine. So congrats. You just made a bunch of bigots in your population inadvertently as well. All those shining faces that are standing there applauding and holding signs saying, we welcome refugees and shit like that, they'll dry up within a couple of years. That's about all. Peace out.